Hi Thalia, how you doing? All right, so I was reading through your written paragraph here, and it makes sense. And I think this is really clever. I do. To me, one of the issues that I kind of anticipated was how do we show that the stove isn't working? How do we show that there's no access to a stove? Or how do we define and introduce the problem being and making a logical transition from having uncooked burgers to using an iron on them? And to me, that was probably my biggest area of concern in the first phase of the project. And I think that you've done a wonderful job solving that issue. I'm going to go ahead and admit it. I never would have thought of this, of the smoking stove and the dysfunctional stove caused by the fire. And that's really, it sets up the narrative beautifully. Okay, so let's go through. So she gets home, she got her groceries, taking her burgers out, sets up the stove, burgers are on the stove, ready to go. Okay, and then all of a sudden the stove starts smoking, and so she's freaking out, throws a bucket of water on it. Now what, right? So this is good. Now you're showing hunger by giving the little grr. Maybe we could have some little jagged lines coming out there, just indicating that she's not happy with her stomach. And I think this is smart, holding her hands over her stomach. That further defines the problem, being that we're making this kind of closure, this association with the GERS and the fact that she's holding her hands over her stomach. We're making this association that is hunger, and the hunger is further defined as being a result of the fact that she couldn't cook her burgers. So that's a really super logical progression there. Okay, so we go from being hungry to, I think, a frame in between this right here. I think a frame right here in between these two, with showing her face like really perplexed, like maybe even like, what do I do now, right? Because right now it's going from hunger to solution. So maybe we can go from hunger to what do I do now, then solution. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, and then we go to plugging the iron in, and then ironing the burgers, setting them up on the plate, and then getting ready to chomp into a delicious burger, right? So really good job. Now, if you've looked it through some of the other videos, I'm going to move into this part, and I've shared this with all students so far, and I think that this is a critical point in this assignment. Now, the assignment itself, okay, we could just say, all right, illustrate these. It's a class in digital illustration, right? So illustrate these and we'll call it a day. But that's not, there's so much more potential here. There's so much more that we can do. So that's why I'm really emphasizing this narrative quality, okay? So as long as we're practicing illustration, we might as well practice our ability to tell a story in a nice, clean, concise way, right? Because that's what we are as designers. We figure out how to tell stories and how to deliver those stories in the most expeditious manner possible. The problem I'm seeing, and the way that I'm seeing this assignment come to fruition and turn itself from just a mere assignment and illustrative techniques to something that could be a really super effective portfolio piece, is the way you deliver the narrative. Okay, so is this the most effective thing? Square one, square two, square three, square four. It is if it's a storyboard. Okay, and storyboards are a great way to organize your thoughts, and I think it's a natural tendency for students to organize their thoughts in this assignment in this kind of matrix of storyboards. But the downside is that doesn't often translate into the most visually interesting way to tell a story. So my suggestion to students is, let's break these out of the individual frames and let's figure out a way to present these sketches in where there's a good organic relationship between the series of sketches and between individual sketches and in between sketches in the beginning and the end. Okay, so there should be a logical relationship between this sketch and this sketch, or this sketch and this sketch. Do you see what I'm saying? And right now that's not there because each one is isolated and doesn't have like this symbiotic relationship with the composition as a whole. So let's break these out of their frames and somehow figure out a way to present these out of the boxes. All right? That would leave us with this, and then we have you. Right now you've got these arrows, and that's good. You're giving the viewer direction. You're telling the viewer which frame comes next, and that's smart because if we go from here to here, accidentally, the narrative falls apart. It no longer makes sense, right? So this is a smart thing, leading the viewer from the last frame to the next frame. The problem is that the arrows are just too obvious. It's just too obvious, and it's not very creative. So think of a way that we can connect the illustrations in an interesting way. And the example that I kept using before, and I've been using in the videos of this critique, is the guy with the beard shaving with the machete, and the frames in that narrative were connected with the hairs from his big red beard, right? So how can we connect these in an interesting way? And that is what you need to think of, and that's one of the things that is going to move us into the next phase of the project. So, all right, so great job. I think it's a fantastic job. I mean, let me just give you an idea of what could feasibly work. Okay, this frame right here, number 10, all right? You got the iron. You introduced the iron, okay? Well, actually, you introduced the iron here, but she's plugging the iron in. Here, you've got the iron. Maybe we can take, and this could be an interesting, we could take the cord of the iron and just start intertwining that behind the illustrations, and that cord could act as the connector, the arrows, kind of the storyline, the timeline. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have just a line that's going like this behind each illustration, and it's so far it's just a line. It's just a line that's helping us guide through. And that, okay, then, okay, but that's 10, 11, and 12. Yeah, so how would that work? Because that's not the last frame. Okay, I'm just thinking out loud. I was thinking maybe we could use the cord from this to connect everything, but that would be assuming that this is the last frame, and it's not. That's the last frame. So, okay, you get the idea, though. You know, you could possibly use pickles or pickles to a little trail of pickles in between each illustration, a little trail of pickles that is following through the narrative. Okay, but you get the idea, right? Okay, great job. Any questions at all, please let me know. I'll be glad to clarify. Good job. Thank you.